Hey, everybody, what's up? It's your boy MJ. Welcome to the Black Wine Guy Experience. My guest today is owner and chief bubble officer of La Caravelle Champagne and founder and president of Bouquet Ventures Hospitality Consulting, Rita Jammet. Rita and her husband, André Jammet, owned and operated the iconic New York French restaurant La Caravelle. The New York Times described La Caravelle as a French legend and a Paris and Manhattan experience to food enthusiasts and the A-list of American society. After closing La Caravelle restaurant in 2004, she pursued her passion for champagne and started to market and distribute La Caravelle Champagne and some Bordeaux producers, which are available in a growing number of distinguished New York and other states' hospitality, restaurant, and retail establishments. Rita is an avid champagne lover and not only promotes her brand, La Caravelle, but is actually a bit of an ambassador for the entire Champagne region. Capitalizing on her 25 plus years of hospitality experience and her extensive network of colleagues that includes chefs and restaurateurs worldwide, Rita formed Bouquet Ventures Hospitality Consulting in 2004. In recognition for her service to the food, wine, and hospitality worlds, Rita was bestowed the Order of Agricultural Merit by France's Minister of Agriculture and Food. Welcome to the show, Rita.
Thank you, MJ. I'm thrilled to be here.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, I'm really happy to be with you, and I've followed all your interviews and just love the list of people that I'm joining.
Well, thank you for being here. It's just an honor for you to be here. Rita and I connected. This show has worked out for me via Instagram, but I've been following her for a while, and she was following me, and it just popped up with just something in your feed, and I was like, you know what? She'd be a great guest. and then it was confirmed because then I saw you like on someone else's podcast. Who was on this podcast? So then I knew you were legit. I was like, I knew you were legit, and then so many people speak well of you. Like I had Victoria James on, which that'll be coming out soon, and I'm finished reading her book. You're her mentor. You're a mentor to so many women in this industry.
Thank you. Yes, I'm a strong believer of supporting, especially sharing whatever you've learned, and if you can help someone and change their life, it's so good to do that. By the way, I've also been following you and wanted to be on the podcast. Didn't know exactly how to do that, but it happened.
I mean, we have this amazing energy that happens here with the podcast. I mean, it just fell into line. Today is Bubbles Day. You're the first of two champagne ambassadors.
Amazing.
And that literally came about. My producer was like, we need to get Neek Sam on, because we had been talking about it.
Yes.
And nobody was traveling. Well, very few people were traveling because of what we just went through. And he didn't think he was going to be back here till the fall. And she said that. We had our Monday morning meeting. She said that. And I said, hey, when are you going to be around? And he's like, I didn't even know he was like, well, I'm just here to visit my family. I'm like, wait, you're in New York? And he was like, I was like, yo. And he's like, I think I can get away on Thursday. I was like, oh my God, that's too perfect.
Perfect.
So
I love him. He's awesome. He has great energy, and champagne's delicious too.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping the paths will cross and we can all get a big group loving photo out in the studio, as our tradition. But there's so much to go into with this show. I always like to start at the beginning. So, in our research, I read that your family is from Iraq, but you never lived there.
Right.
Okay. You were born in Saudi Arabia and grew up in Lebanon and Switzerland. Okay. So
exactly.
You're an international woman of food, wine, mystery,
a little walking UN for you
yeah,
here.
Exactly. What was that like? I mean, to grow up like that.
I think there's it provides a great mind openness, and I've always been a people person, and especially of all cultures, all races, and that makes me happy. So I was raised a lot in boarding schools, but my dad had these amazing values that he instilled in me. It's like there's the only category you need to put is good people, bad people. That's it. Otherwise, the king and the street sweeper, same. So that's my belief.
Yeah, I love that. I was thinking about that just because of a conversation I had with some friends last night. And funny you say that. And it came to me this morning on the train. Sam Kinison, a comedian, he had this bit. And he said, I don't care what your race or religion is. He's like, I can talk to you for 30 seconds, and if you're an asshole, I don't want to deal with you, right?
Exactly.
So it's got nothing to do with any of that
Exactly.
external stuff, right?
Totally.
I agree with you said. It's
Totally.
like who the person is. So I love that. So, I mean, I'm just as a go like so. Did your family migrate from Iraq? Like, what was there? Because I know that most of us know that part of the world. There's a lot of conflict and there's a lot of tension, unfortunately.
Yes.
So how did your family migrate from there, and that you ended up in Saudi Arabia?
Well, as you said, the region is always in big turmoil, and that started back then, just in the 50s. My dad was a visionary, and he saw that the whole Middle East as a barrel of powder ready to explode at some point. And while he was in Iraq, he had an opportunity to work in Saudi Arabia. And so he did, and moved the family there. And that's where I was born. Then at age 5, when time came to go to school, being that we were Christians, not Muslims, there were no schools for Christians, for non-Muslims, actually. So they put me in a Catholic boarding school, French, in Lebanon, where a lot of my family had been. And we also had family in Lebanon. I wasn't just catapulted to another country. Bye, see ya. No, that was not the case. So it was I think it was a little hard at age 5, but they weren't getting rid of me. They were just making sure that I get an education and also being surrounded by family over there. So that's my first 7 years, from age 5 to 12 in Beirut. Eventually, my dad, after that vision of the Middle East, we got to get out of here, we got to get out of here. So for his work, he was exposed to going to Switzerland a lot, and he fell in love with that country. It was like a haven, which it really was and still is. So he decided to move to Switzerland. And then I said, there must be schools that I can go to in Switzerland. So he wanted me to stay because in Beirut, in schools, I was learning everything in French and everything in Arabic, which was a lot of work.
Wow.
And Arabic is very difficult, especially the literary Arabic. So I kind of went on strike and I said, nope, I want Switzerland. So moved to another French Catholic boarding school in Geneva, this time the same city as them. And it was great. It was great. Then I went to after I graduated the French baccalaureate, I went to the university in Geneva and got a degree in economics. And incidentally, I'm the first woman in my family to have been to college, to have finished, first of all, secondary school, and then to go to college, because my dad said, no, we're Middle Eastern, but, in this world, I want you to be able to be self-sufficient, not to have to depend on someone for your livelihood. So education it is. And, I'm thrilled he did.
Yeah, I love that. It's amazing that, because, it could so easily have been like, you're not going to school, and that,
right.
And that
we'll find you a husband,
right,
and
exactly,
blah, blah, blah.
Right. And back then, like, you're right, your father was a visionary. That's still going on today.
Yes.
So for him to
definitely
to buck the trend and have you be, that's amazing. I love that. So given all these countries lived in, like, what kind of foods and flavors were you exposed to growing up?
Definitely Iraqi and Lebanese food. Those are my big stomach and heart loves. In Iraq, my favorite dish is what they call tadig in Persian, is the crispy basmati rice.
Okay.
With that family recipe of cardamom, lemon, and saffron also. So that's whenever we meet with all our kids that are now all over the place, we say, we're going to do that recipe, please, Mom. So that's our comfort food, kind of. And then in Lebanon, there's all the meze that actually my cousin Philippe Massoud owns Ilili, a wonderful Lebanese restaurant in the city. And guess what? I'm dining there tonight. As it so happens.
I know. I'm telling you, things just fall in line here on the podcast. So growing up, was there wine in your home? Was your father was he a wine drinker? Or your mother?
Oh yeah. Yes. My dad was a Burgundy lover. He was actually a Chevalier du Tastevin. And Geneva and Beaune are not that far from each other. So when he went for his intronization, I tagged along, even though I was just 12, 13. So I was like, can I have water? I don't want to drink that stuff. And my dad said, just taste. It's so good. So we had to bribe the waiter to get a bottle of water and shh, under the table, quiet, don't say anything. So, yeah. And then eventually, you know, I came to just love wine and be very interested. And then I discovered champagne, and that's it.
Okay. So, you know, you said your dad wanted you to get an education. You mentioned you have a degree in economics and as we see marketing and economics?
Marketing, yes.
Okay.
It's part of it.
Yeah. What was the influence of your father's... he had an international trade company that invested in hotels and restaurants. Was that something that
Yes.
kind of fashioned your career or some of your choices you made?
Definitely. First of all, it's entrepreneurial, so that was instilled in me from day one. Second of all, it's about dealing with people from all countries. He used to travel to Eastern Europe, to Japan, to obviously to the Middle East, and I just also I developed that love for Japan. So I just love discovering new cultures because it's so, it brings you so much. It's so enriching, you know, I think on a personal level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I love that. How did working with your dad? How was that? What was that experience like? So you said it was entrepreneurial, but like, he was still your boss, right?
He was the toughest boss that anyone could ever have, especially because I was his daughter. He was like office hours were 8 a.m. to noon, and then 2 to 6 in Geneva. So if I was 8:05, 8:10, he was like watching, clapping on his watch, and like, you're late. Like, okay, but Dad, I had to park the car. I don't care. 8 o'clock is 8 o'clock. It's not 8:05. Like, woo. And then if I made a mistake in one of the jobs, woo, he would like correct me and go redo it. And, you know, it's that rigor that I'm very grateful for. It's just, you know, you want things done well. That's what it is. And yeah, you can be a pain in the neck for asking for it. But at the end of the day, it's quality work that you do.
I love that, the rigor. Was there like, so obviously he was very meticulous, and,
Yes.
and he had high expectations. But were there moments where he like would pull you aside and give you some advice? Like, is there a piece of advice that he gave you that still rings true for you today?
Absolutely. You know, parallel to all his professional and business qualifications, he also had a great heart, and he loved to share his knowledge and wisdom. And one of the big things I learned is every problem has a solution. That's a very good one. Sometimes you're really deep in the weeds and it's coming from all parts and you don't know. You just breathe one thing at a time and one day at a time. Those are the two things, along with constantly in the background is, you know, you're human beings, good people, don't forget. No matter where they come from, what they look like, what they say, just good people and bad people. So all these together really formed a very strong foundation for me. And I also, along with André, we really instilled this in our sons.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm sure we'll talk about them because they're doing things too. What you said just made me think of. I think people need to understand like problems have solutions.
Yes.
If there's no solution, that just might be the way things are. But a true problem has a solution.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I mean, not to be cagey, but even if the solution is no solution,
Right.
meaning you can't do anything about it,
Right.
you do what you can,
Right.
and that's it.
Right. But I think that's important because I think people throw around like platitudes, but I think this show is about more than wine. I hope to think. And
For sure.
And I just think like when like that was like that's so true. Like a problem has a solution. And if there is no solution, then you figure out a problem you can solve.
That's it.
So
yeah.
So safe to say this is where your love of hospitality began, working with your dad's investment group, and then. But when did it become clear? Like when was it clear that this was the world you wanted to live in?
Actually, hospitality, I really joined when we moved to New York. Actually, that's not true. Backtrack. André, my husband, his family owned the Bristol Hotel in Paris, and his dad actually founded the hotel. André was born in a hotel room. So when we got married, I was lucky
Probably
to
conceived in one too.
probably with all the travel going on. And my dad owned a hotel at some point too.
Okay.
So yes, with Andre's influence, the Bristol, the hospitality is a notion that's kind of ingrained in me. Also, being from the Middle East, I believe we have this already in our blood. It's like, come in, you're welcome in my space, in my house, and my definition of hospitality is your guest leaves better off than when they came in. So that's like you added something to their life and made them feel good. So
I love that. I love that. Talk a little bit, because it was actually right here in my notes, and I love this, like you've read my notes. Talk a little bit about the Bristol Hotel, because a lot of people, we have different levels who listen to this. Like, I have wonderful wine professionals and people who are learning more about. Tell them about the Bristol Hotel. Like, it's like a really serious, like, luxury.
It is. It is in one of the
some
world.
baller stuff. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. Super baller.
yeah.
High roller baller.
Yeah.
But it's a world palace, and the beauty of their hospitality and their brand of luxury is that, yes, you have all the amenities, all the comfort, etc., and the luxury, but it's also very human. It's not robotic, or it's not haute at all. They make you feel so good. Like, they'll joke around with you and also, but make sure that your needs are met in the hotel, and that's priceless. It's understated luxury, not flash in your face.
Oh, by the way, this champagne, I believe we have your Blanc de Blanc.
Yes.
Delicious.
Thank you.
And it's like reasonably priced. I mean, like, it's real champagne, and it's just
Yes.
yeah, it's lovely.
Thank you.
So after you worked with your dad, like, did you ever like were you a bartender? Were you a line cook? Like, what were some of the other positions you held in hospitality? Although, like, when you own shit, like, I don't know, like, did you want to, like, you might want to go work in the kitchen for a week, but, like, I realize that question's kind of interesting.
No, it is. I actually didn't work in back of the house.
Okay.
My back of the house is my home kitchen, which it doesn't qualify really, but
I'm sure it
no.
does with you're having the restaurant. I'm sure you throw down in the back of the house. So coming to your house, it's probably an experience for.
Yes,
yeah.
I mean, my guests seem to think so. I mean, it's always very interesting for me to learn about things. This is what I learned in school, in my education, how to learn. And for me, it was very interesting, the world of hospitality, both front of the house, back of the house. Mm-hmm. From my marketing perspective, first of all, branding, and then positioning, and also the people who work there. Because that was so interesting at La Caravelle, where we worked with chefs from all over the world. We had Tadashi, a Japanese chef. We had American chefs, Michael Romano. We had Cyril Renaud, a French chef, among others. And for me to be able to bridge cultures and understand chefs, because it's a special situation. Chefs are artists, but under a lot of pressure. So you have to kind of know how to deal with both these situations. And it was an amazing school. Plus, I love to eat. Haha.
I love what you said, though. I mean, at that level of luxury and that you're operating Michelin-starred restaurants, everything, like, you're right. The chef is an art. It's like telling Picasso, okay, paint a masterpiece every night.
That's right.
Like most artists have years or months.
Exactly.
It's like every night.
You start from scratch every day. You really hit it on the nail with that. And that's one of the big challenges and wonders of hospitality, is that every day you start from scratch. It's a bit like a theater production. You can't take anything from the day before. Every day comes with its sets of challenges and rewards, and sometimes headaches. But hey, you plow through it and you're good. Your guests are happy. That's all that counts.
Right? That's so true. So when did you meet, actually, André? When did you two meet? How'd you fall in love? What was your first date like?
So André and I met in Geneva. Okay. I was living in Geneva. He was living in Paris. And given the age difference, André is actually the 10th of 10 children.
Wow.
No twins. And his sister, number 2, had daughters that were my age, and one of them was my friend. So she said to me, "You have to meet my uncle." And I'm thinking, "Oof, that sounds like a little, old." And she said, "No, no, no, he's not much older than you." I was like, "Okay, we're not in the geriatric department." So we met. He came to Geneva. That's where we met, and then I would go to Paris, and then we met. At some point in Burgundy also. We would meet halfway through in a great restaurant, of course, always food involved and hospitality. And we all went on vacation in their family home in La Baule. It's on the Atlantic coast of France. It's a gorgeous place with sandy beaches and huge house with lots of cousins, as you can imagine, and friends. So that's where our romance started. And then eventually we had this long-term relationship, but we kept, meeting either Geneva or Paris or in between. And we got engaged and then got married. And then after we got married, shortly thereafter, the family sells the hotel. It was like, who? Welcome to the family. Okay. And after a very short year and a half in Paris, we said, let's get out of here. We have no kids yet. Let's just put our stuff in storage, take our 2 suitcases, and cross the Atlantic. Because André had spent a year in New York prior to that, repping the Bristol Hotel. And we came to the U.S. On our honeymoon. We did a tour. We had friends and family, and I fell in love with America. I swear to God, on the ride from JFK to Manhattan, not the most glamorous ride at all, but I said, I want to live here. And he's like, oh, what did I mean? How you haven't even seen it. How do you know? I said, my gut says. Okay. So I still feel that way today. It's just my favorite place to live, America. As much as Europe is beautiful, the Middle East is amazing, but this is where my home is.
I love that. And I was going to say, but love stories just sound so much better when they're in Europe. Like, I was in Geneva, he was in Paris, and we meet in Burgundy. We're on the coast of the Atlantic coast of France. It's like, I'm from Fresno, and my girlfriend's from Stockton, and I'm from Long Branch. My wife, she was in New Haven. Like, it's just not as sexy as it.
Hey, no, it works everywhere. Romance is romance.
Romance is romance, but it just sounds better. You know what I mean, guys? It does sound better. But I mean, love is a principle, right? I get it.
Exactly.
But it just sounds better. I just gotta tell you. and it's even the romantic of like, just that is like that shitty drive actually into the city from JFK. But like, I love how you trusted your heart and your gut, and you're like, this is where I want to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's so awesome. What year was that, by the way?
That was in the honeymoon was in 1977, and we moved to America in 1980, January 1980.
Very nice.
Yep.
You were here in time for the Reagan years.
Yep.
So it's pop. I know, it's just pop culture. It just pops in my head. So he sold the hotel. So you guys come to moved to US in 1980. Like, what did you guys do?
So that's an interesting story too. Before coming on, so we had those friends here and connections, and they said, "Oh, don't worry, we'll come up with a project for André, and then a way to get the green card." That's great, amazing. We come here with our little suitcase for 2 weeks, and then after a few days, we are sitting here and we're looking at each other like, none of these things are actually happening. So what do we do? So we look at each other. We're like, I said, "I'm not going back," and he said, "Me neither." Okay, good. So let's make it work. Who do you know? Who do I know? Et cetera, et cetera. So we managed to make it work. André, through his hotel network, got a job at the Regency Hotel, which is on 61st and Park, as an assistant manager. So he worked nights and weekends. And I started to work for the French Cultural Services. Interestingly enough, it had to be a non-French person. I'm Swiss
national citizenship.
Yep. So that was amazing. I worked. I had a diplomatic visa. I just love that. No customs when you travel. You don't pay tax. And I was like, okay, that's good. And then eventually, André got his green card, and we started to look for a restaurant project. And that's where, after searching, along with one of the founders of La Caravelle restaurant, Robert Maison, one day Robert invites André and he tells him, actually, I want to retire. Why don't you buy my half of the restaurant? And André was like, Shh, yeah, let's talk. So that's what happened in '84.
Okay, hold on. I actually want to dive deeper into that, but we need to take a quick break.
Yeah.
And then we come back, we'll dive into all things La Caravelle.
Sure.
Okay, we're back. So you go from how are we going to stay here to 4 years later, like, buy me out of this restaurant.
Yep.
Okay, so what? I mean, then what happened? I'm like, so did you guys immediately start working together? Like, what was the process of you guys assuming like ownership of the La
Actually,
Caravelle?
we didn't start. This is a great question. We didn't start working together because we started to have babies. So that was my main job. One and twins, 18 months apart. So you can imagine that. That was a pretty busy schedule.
Busy.
Yeah, yeah. And then in '88, when André's partner, Roger Fessaguet, they split, and André bought Roger's shares in '88. Then the kids were in school, so I was ready to come in, and I hadn't actually never worked in a restaurant per se, but it's the business side of it that I was handling, and then I really got that bug of the restaurant world. It's so amazing. I just loved it.
So I know your children are a little bit older, but I mean, restaurant it's like a 20-hour day. It can be like 12 to 20-hour day business. How did you juggle being a mom and I know you and running that business?
To be honest with you, in retrospect, I don't know how we did it. But you have to do it. You have to do it. Fortunately, I had help, but I was not working there full time. André was there all the time, and we lived in Manhattan. We lived on 84th Street. The restaurant was on 55th, so the commute wasn't like a killer. Mm-hmm. So we managed to do it, and just and when we were with our kids, we were very cognizant of the fact that we wanted to give them quality time with us. They also came to dine at least once a week.
They
Those quenelles, ask them about the quenelle of La Caravelle, they'll go, oh. So yeah, it was good. They dress up like papa, with the suit and tie. It was very cute. The clip-on tie, but still a tie. It was really, really cool to do that. And I think they kept great memories. And then eventually when they grew up, they interned at the restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Or the restaurant. And then Nicolas, he asked me, Mom, do you have any friends in the restaurant world that I can intern at every summer, a different one? Kind of already building his...
That's amazing.
Yeah. He had that vision. He worked so hard. I mean, all three of them are incredibly hard workers, and I really, I admire them, to be honest with you. I admire them, and I learned from them now, which is beautiful. When you're the educator, and then you flip roles at some point. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
And I know they work in hospitality. They work in hospitality now too. At least one of them.
Nicolas, yes.
Yeah.
Nicolas is a co-founder of Sweet Green, which he co-founded right as they graduated from. He graduated from Georgetown with two of his classmates, and Patrick is in the marketing of food product distribution. For instance, now he's with Good Culture, which they make organic, originally cottage cheese, and then they're expanding the range. Prior to that, he was with Sir Kensington, which is also a very, important. So he's also in the hospitality world, if you want, and he started with Honesty. Mm-hmm. As for Christophe, our oldest son, Christophe is he learned finance at Tulane, but he quickly realized that world was not for him because he's very artistic too, very sharp but artistic. So he developed his own specialty of digital strategist. Yeah, kudos. Now he's working with a group, and they just advise amazing companies, very interesting projects like IBM, Watson, Bloomberg, etc. So it's very rewarding.
The Jammet family is balling, y'all.
And I have a fun story too. When social media was starting, I asked, "Hey, Christophe, can you set me up with Twitter?" He said, "Sure. Let's call you Caravelle Champ." I'm like, ooh, I like that with the double entendre, champion and champagne. And then Instagram followed. And now I think they look at me, they're like, oh, this is like Fantasia that we can't stop.
That's so awesome. What did you love most about La Caravelle? What are you proudest of at that project?
The project is about continuing the story in a different universe and medium. Originally, it was obviously the the restaurant, and then it became champagne and wine brand, which is in and of itself, branding-wise, it's very tricky to do, because people know you as a restaurant, and you're closed, you're no longer there. But having the champagne through the hospitality world, and which has embraced me beautifully, I have to say, I'm so grateful to restaurateurs, chefs, and the sommeliers. The somm community has kind of adopted me, even though I'm older than most. I dare to say all. But it's just, it's very beautiful. I am a two-way streeter. Like, I support people who support me. Yeah. And as you mentioned earlier, if I can mentor or help someone or train someone, I'm always super happy to do it. So that part, I love the story behind it. Obviously, it has to be a good product, because I wouldn't rely on, putting the name on something that I don't believe in. The quality, approachability, and the fact that it can be in a lot of places on its own. And the story of us behind our family and all that, that's really something that I'm very happy about.
Wow. Why did it close? Like, what led to you guys closing the restaurant?
So in May 2004, we closed. We had owned the restaurant partially for 24 years, the last 24 years, because the restaurant was opened in 1960 by two French gentlemen, Robert Mézin and Fred Decré. And as I said earlier, 84 the first half, 88 the second half. After 9/11, we really were hit very hard on a lot of levels. I think 9/11 changed the society in general profoundly. Yeah. So we had we held on as much as we could. Also trying to bridge the past and the present in a seamless way without creating a schizophrenic brand. Like, what are you? Are you classic or are you today? What are you? I like to say we're a timeless brand, and allowing chefs to create their own, because they're artists. You can't, if you have a big chef and you tell them, these are the dishes you're going to cook, no, 100% of that, it's too challenging. So we were able to maintain the classic, which we didn't want to let go of, because it was us. It was the 1960s, the Kennedy family. I mean, the whole era of Camelot. All that we really needed to hold on to. Yeah.
So when it came to that time, it sounds like it was a little bit agonizing.
Yeah.
At that point, did it ever occur to you, like, okay, this was a good run in hospitality, that's it, I'm done, I'm going to go do something else? Did that ever cross your mind, or did you always have the vision of taking the brand and making a pivot?
That's an amazing question. I was, first of all, we had a beautiful exit, because we suffered a lot through the end, but it was a beautiful exit in that I am a very positive person. We are, and our brand is positive, so we didn't want to go on a dwindling. Guys, we closed last night, so we were lucky to have been nominated for the James Beard Outstanding Restaurant, which is like the grand finale of awards. We didn't win, but we were nominated, which is a huge way to exit. After we closed, I was like did a lot of thinking, as you can imagine, and I'm like, what do I want to do? Now I have La Caravelle restaurant on my forehead. Who am I? So one thing is sure is my love for hospitality. So I said, I don't want to leave that world. And since we had introduced the champagne and the wine at the restaurant in 98 already, I said, why don't I continue? We actually urged by friends, family, and guests, like, hey, why don't you continue the champagne? And I was like, oh, yeah, great. But I don't like to sell. I'm not a salesperson. I'm more of a promotion, marketing. So I said, okay, I'm going to learn new things. And it was a challenge at first because, restaurateurs said, I don't want the name of another restaurant on my wine list, which I can understand to a certain extent. Yeah. But then I said, it's closed. It's not going to open. Our first big break was Alain Ducasse. Because, we help each other at some point. And then one day he said to me, whatever you need. I said, okay, actually, remember that promise? We have our own now, the line of champagne and mostly champagne at first. He said, "Okay, I'm opening 2 restaurants, the Adour and Benoit. Go see my wine director. If he likes it, you're in." Okay, that was a great first introduction because it gave me kind of precedence to go and say, if I'm asked,
exactly right.
where else is the champagne served?
Right, exactly. Well, Alain Ducasse just bought 100 cases for his place, so
I'm just saying.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just saying. Yeah. Totally.
But it took a good 8-9 years to be in the business because it was like efforts. But I had this vision that I wanted to achieve. And I'm very persistent when I have an idea. It's sadly hard to get me out of it. So I did.
Talk a little bit about that because I think a lot of people. I mean, we live in such a fast-paced world, and a lot of people think it's easy to make it, right? Like I'll just throw up some posts on social media, and I'm like it took like 8-9 years to get in the black. I mean, like. And you are everybody's out here building your own private brand. Like you had a brand already.
Exactly.
I mean, I just talk a little bit more. You said it like why are you so persistent? Like where'd that tenacity come from?
That tenacity comes from following my gut, first of all, and then what I was instilled, from my dad, the values, and really the belief that I think this would be it's an extension of hospitality, basically. That's how I view La Caravelle. Plus, I love champagne. Plus, it's just magical world. To make it happen it really needed patience and time. To actually, to brand is like you have to imprint something in people's minds, and that takes a long time.
Yep.
Oh, La Caravelle, yeah. The older people would say, "Oh, yeah, it wasn't that a restaurant?" And then the younger generation like, "Oh, what's that?" So you had to, message these 2 different constituencies and. As I said, getting the support from the industry was very, very important, and just keep going at it and knowing who you are and messaging who you are, not wanting to be another brand. I'm not a huge brand. It's a niche brand, first of all,
right.
Which means a lot of things can happen and others can't.
Yep.
So that's reality.
Why do you love champagne so much? I know why. I mean, like, why?
First of all, in general, it's magic.
Yeah.
It's magic in itself. Second of all, when you know and you learn about it and you see how it's made, it's incredible. It's an art. The knowledge that it takes, all these years of experience, the climate, the soil, and then the know-how of these enologists and winemakers is just mind-boggling. I think in Champagne, it's already hard to make good wine, but here is like an extra level up because the blending and how you can imagine when you're tasting the still wines, they're going to blend 300 of Chardonnay, let's say, and then know the difference that if I use that one Chardonnay a little more than the other, it'll make a difference. I'm baffled by that. I'm really amazed by that because how they can compartmentalize those different informations and then make sure that that'll bring this result, the vision that they have. And it's just magical to taste with the winemaker. And he'll say, oh, that'll be for great vintage. And that, you see, from the same parcel, you have 2 different clear wines. Like you say, clear wines is the vinified wine still. And then in the same parcel of land, different exposures, you'll have different wine. Can you imagine like an added level of complexity? Basically, it's managing this complexity that I find admirable. And then the blending and then the aging. I think really the messaging for why champagne is what it is people need to understand what it takes to bring a bottle of champagne. When you walk into a store, you see a bottle of champagne. If you know exactly what it takes to get that bottle, you'll have higher respect and you'll be willing to pay more than the other sparklings, for sure. Knowledge is power.
I love that. I love that. So we're having the Blanc de Blanc now. What are some of the other how many champagnes do you produce?
We have three champagnes. They're all non-vintage.
Okay.
So the Blanc de Blanc, I like to start with the Blanc de Blanc because it's Chardonnay only. It's, many different still Chardonnays that are blended, but it's a Chardonnay that comes mostly from the Côte des Blancs, and it ages for 3 years in the bottle. And it's
in the bottle?
In the bottle,
okay.
Yes. So it's vinified in steel tanks.
Okay.
And aged for 3 years, which actually, helps. It's almost like a tête de cuvée after 3 years, knowing that the minimum aging in champagne is 15 months, which champagne, by the way, is highly regulated, just in order to achieve that quality and that, consistency of quality throughout the board. You need to have these requirements. And 3 years in a bottle will allow a lot of beautiful secondary,
I'm getting like
notes
yeasty,
to come.
doughy stuff that you don't normally get in most non-vintage, champagnes. I was picking that up, that kind of dough, yeasty thing going on.
Exactly.
And so, what are the others?
Then we go to the Brut, the Cuvée Nina. By the way, Caravelle is a type of ship that was sailed on when the New World was discovered. So that's why we always also associated with the pairing it with cuisines from all over the world. And I just love that because mostly wine is about travel for me.
Yeah.
Because it's the sense of place and it shows you, where it is from, why it is like that, because of that place. So geography plays a huge role. And then when you're pairing it with all these different flavors and textures and cuisines from all over the world, it's just fascinating to see empirically what you can come up with. So the Cuvée Nina has, Nina being one of the 3 Caravelle ships. That's why we call it Cuvée Nina. Means little girl, too, in Spanish. It's a blend of 40% Chardonnay, 30% Pinot Noir, and 30% Pinot Meunier, the 3 major grapes of Champagne.
You need to do a Blanc de Noirs. I love a good Pinot.
That's my new...
I love a new Pinot Meunier.
Meunier I agree.
Champagne, it just, there's...
I've discovered those, a few years ago, and I'm just increasingly falling in love with them, like Mousset or beautiful.
Beautiful stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And these are aged, the Cuvée Nina's aged for 2 years.
Okay.
24 months.
Okay. Still exceeding that 15 months.
Exactly.
Mandate.
Exactly. And then the beautiful thing about tasting the Cuvée Nina after the Blanc de Blanc is that you see what the Pinot Noir and the Pinot Meunier bring to the equation. And that's really, it's like adding on, make it give more body, more structure, and a little more fruit also, and makes it a very easy wine for aperitif, even you to have to be had on its own. It doesn't really beg for food always.
Right. So I'm just going to throw this question here as I'm opening the Nina. What was like the bottle of champagne? This is delicious, but I'm sure you've had a lot of champagne. I'm sure you've had some baller champagne.
I had.
What knocked your socks off? What was the first bottle you're like, oh my God?
The first one, I don't exactly remember the vintage. Also, I believe it was 1907. It was at La Caravelle time, a Ruinart from 1907.
1907.
We
they
did.
Got shook up a little bit. It's okay.
Yeah. And
it's okay. Nobody saw that.
No. What happened?
So, I'm sorry. So, did you say 1907?
1907. But in all fairness, that was tasted in the 80s. So, it's kind of not fairness, 2010, almost a century.
70-something years old.
Yes.
Yeah,
it was magical.
Truth be told.
Recently, I really liked I love Krug. The Krug, the 98 is really beautiful.
Really good. Yeah. So, one thing I've noticed on Instagram, which has been really good, is should I ask this question now? Or okay, so it's kind of leading. So before I ask this question, talk about the formation of Bouquet Ventures. Because the restaurant closes, you're going to promote the champagne, and Bouquet Ventures was also born in 2004, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, La Caravelle Champagne ambassadorship, bubbleship, whatever my title is. This falls under Bouquet Ventures. It's my company that encompasses all.
Okay.
And I'm also a consultant in hospitality. So I have projects that come up that I work on. Let's say a hotel wants to bring in a chef. It's also my restaurant side also. How do you say that? Liaising the two worlds, and
so this is open. It's interesting because I had some aged Burgundy last night, and actually in this, I think the Pinot Noir and the Pinot Meunier is bringing there's like a little bit of leather and spice in this one.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you.
Like leathered cherries and some spice. It's pretty bananas.
The fruit is beautiful.
Yeah.
It comes up.
Yeah.
It's also how it plays with the other flavors from the other grapes, and that's what the magic is. You asked me why champagne. Mm-hmm. That's why the blend. I think the magic of champagne lies in the blend. That's where you have the most magic. Obviously, when you have an incredible year, but still they do blend, several places and several parcels and vineyards.
So, yeah, that's what I saw. I don't know, and it might have been an old post, but I said I have to have this woman on the podcast. She did the fried chicken dinner at Champagne Week a few years ago. Talk about fried chicken and champagne, please.
Absolutely. So in my quest to demonstrate how champagne goes with just about everything, even the most surprising things, in conjunction with Blaine Ashley of New York Champagne Week.
Okay.
One of the events that we had during the pandemic was fried chicken and champagne fete.
Yes.
So Marcus Samuelson is a dear friend and neighbor, and we support each other. And I love Red Rooster, and I love his work. He and his family, they're amazing people, the kindest, and just very, they give so much to the community. So his fried chicken is incredible, and he sends it through Gold Belly. And it really, I think it works so well. When you heat it up, his formula is just so good that the texture, once it's cooked, baked, is just fantastic.
See, you sent me some, and I I don't know if you listened to the episode I did with Shakira, and we were having fried chicken wars.
Love Shakira.
Yeah, she's because my mom could fry some fucking chicken. I just love you, Mom. Miss you. I'm excited to try the chicken and waffles. I make a mean chicken and waffles, but Marcus he's got succotash. It's this whole thing, but I'm just gonna throw a little bit of bacon
pickles
and butter to pickles. Yeah. But what is it about Champagne that works with this wide swath of foods?
So, particularly with the fried chicken, is about your pairing is about contrast and harmony. So, in some pairings you have both. I think in the fried chicken and champagne, you do have both. First of all, the contrast is easy to see. The richness of the fried part of the chicken, the dark meat, will be countered by the acidity, the fresh temperature, and the bubbles of the champagne. So that's great, complement, and complement also. And then the harmony is when you have, there's always some kind of carb outside the breading of the fried part of the chicken. So that also will pick up the notes of brioche from the champagne, which you have, in actually all the cuvées, in our cuvées. So it's really fantastic to have these things that it's, honestly speaking, match made in heaven, I think.
And speaking of matches made in heaven, because it's I think 99% of Americans think champagne is just for special occasions.
Right.
Talk about some of the other just amazing, the versatility of this wine.
Yeah.
Because and that's another thing too. Yes, it is. Champagne is it's singular.
It is. It's unique.
It's unique,
it's
right?
Unique.
It's a sparkling wine from a region called Champagne, but that region is special. There's
Yep.
What are some of the other what would be a classic combination besides New Year's Eve, right?
Right.
That's a classic combination. For
well, first of all, champagne should be had all year round. It is a wine. Yes, you do. It's good to celebrate with champagne. It's amazing, but it's good. It's a wine just because. Oh my God, I feel like a little drink. Let me have champagne. It's only 12 of alcohol. By the way, it's vegan. Just a little note. People don't realize that, but if you're, watching these things. And then champagne is traditionally, our elders, the elders of Champagne, said Champagne is perfect with fish, shellfish, and white meats. Why? Because they didn't travel all over the world. They weren't exposed to all the cultures we are now.
Right.
They didn't go to China for dumplings. They didn't go to fried chicken in the South. They didn't do all that. But there's one pairing that works beautifully, and we've experienced recently, is with oysters. We've paired up again for a virtual event with this amazing company called Real Oyster Cult in Massachusetts.
Oh my God! Instead of Blue Oyster Cult, Real Oyster. Yeah.
Oh yeah. For sure.
That's great.
For sure. And they ship overnight. And this with the Blanc de Blanc and with the Cuvée Ligna is fantastic. It's super classic pairing, but there's a reason for that. In addition, in this pairing, in addition to the, like, when the oyster is a little unctuous, a little fattiness will be countered by the acidity and the bubbles of the champagne. But also you have that salinity. Because don't forget that Champagne, a lot of vineyards are like there's marine deposits in the soil. So that will, you have some champagnes have marine notes, saline, and that will pick up, obviously, the salinity in the, a lot of tongue twisters here.
I know.
Salinity in the oysters.
Salinity champagne.
Salinity in the oysters.
I don't say that once even. Forget trying to say it fast 3 times. No, that's a good one.
Then we did, of course, there's also cheese, which traditionally people drink red wine with it, but actually cheese goes so well with champagne.
Because it's so rich.
Exactly.
The acid and the bubbles just would cut
and then
it.
they're both products of fermentation, so you also have that kind of yeasty thing.
That's your harmony.
Exactly.
Oh, you make this so easy to understand.
And pizza, of course, which has so many elements to it. We did also recently with Laurent Tourondel from L'Amico.
Okay.
You get the pizza kit from them and then the champagne, and it's just amazing. You finish it up with him on screen. We also did an extraordinary pairing with Gabriel Kreuther, the tarte flambée. It's an Alsatian kind of also a sort of a pie.
Okay.
With bacon and cheese and all that with champagne, and another one with wild mushrooms and cheese. It's just fantastic.
So as I'm listening to this, how, like, just you're a problem solver, like you're a solution seeker. How did you pivot in 2020 when restaurants were shutting down, and was it this virtual world? What got you to collaborate? What got you to think to collaborate with people and start doing virtual things and sending kits out? What was that?
Yeah, well, when everybody was forced to close doors in mid-March 2020, I used to sell 80% of my champagne to restaurants and bars, and also this cut like a guillotine. All of a sudden, no more. Closed. So I sat down, had a meeting with myself, and said, "Girl, if you don't do something, you're toast." So I said, "Where? What?" The web, virtual. That's where it is. So I started to look into that, and then partnered with Blaine Ashley, and with some restaurants also, and a cheese company, Artisanal. So we just came up with these formulas where we would facilitate for people. This is what we're going to talk about, and we bring either the chef or the maker, etc., and give people entertainment, pleasure. It's Epicurean, and also they learn a few things here and there. With pairing champagne, where they would buy the champagne from a store, and then the food from, depending on which product supplier it is. Then we got hired by major companies to do because they couldn't do travel anymore, incentive either for their team or for their clients when they closed the deal. So we were hired by these major corporations to do tastings of both food and champagne for their teams and clients. And that really, really kept me busy for the whole thing. And it was really good for the brand because I decided parallel to that to reach out to the customers directly, which I wasn't really doing much before. It was through the wholesale channel. So yeah, I would say all in all, it was a positive, very positive situation.
So as things are beginning to open back up, I mean, you must be excited because, like, you've just been in hospitality for decades and decades. Like, does it, like, what was the first place you went out to eat when stuff opened up?
First was for our anniversary at the outdoor at Jean-Georges. it was brilliant. Yes, put the mask on. I just, to this day, I still put the mask on. We're vaccinated. I put the mask on when needed.
Yeah.
That was an incredible feeling. Then indoors, my first meal indoors was at Le Bernardin when they opened. 5 p.m., first reservation, please. The groupie. So, and in the meantime, I've been supporting restaurants a lot because I'm a lot about that. Supporting in a two-way street, whether it's Côte Korean Steakhouse, Atomix, Atoboy, which are amazing restaurants, Kochi, and then Odo. A lot of Loring Place, showing how different foods go with the champagne. So, yeah, we've done a Valentine's Day Zoom for Dan Kluger, Loring Place's guest, and with the champagne and his incredible menu from his two places, Loring Place and Penny Bridge. So, yeah, it's been, I'm happy to see them open. And obviously, I think now also with the summer, people are going out more. The Zoom activities are kind of tapering down, but I think it's not gone forever. It's going to be back.
I don't think it'll be gone forever. Just because, Zoom was here. I was on Zoom in 2010. Like it became.
Oh, really?
Zoom's been around for a minute. That's the funny thing. So I don't think it's going anywhere. But I just know that there's nothing like what we're doing. Even just sitting down, having a bottle of wine or a bottle of champagne, and having a conversation with someone face to face. The Zoom, it's great, and I think that's. This podcast is a product of that, like the ability to connect, because we began to connect with people. Like, oh, I'm going to actually not just I'm going to DM someone and actually leave comments and begin to actually interact on social, actually be social on social media.
Exactly.
But I don't think there's any substitute for the ability to be social. But I'm grateful for Zoom because, like you said, we can still do these things, and I think. I'm just excited, hearing what you said, because, okay, so now you still have restaurants, but you still you can still do events anywhere.
Absolutely. One of the events we did for one of the corporations, the host stopped in the middle of the event. He says, "Do you guys realize that we have guests from all over the U.S.? And we can do this in a cinch, storm, no storm, I don't care, and all that, no travel, we were doing this." So that was really, really a big plus, I have to say.
You said something that earlier in the conversation about how you've been embraced by the Somm community, and you alluded to that you're like a little bit older than them, but you seem to be ever evolving. Why is that so important to you?
To be
evolving, to just continue to evolve, to adapt.
Yes, while remaining true to yourself, obviously, because people, authenticity is very important. I think the world around you changes. If you don't change, you're like not appealing to the same people, not communicating to the same people, because the world changes, players change. But if you can adapt while still remaining yourself, that's very important. I think it's a huge plus. It's not always easy, but it's really. If you can do it with your brand without, extending it, without not becoming who you are, by all means, it's fun too.
Yeah, it's fun. I love that attitude because, there's a great quote. There's a guy, he just worked the docks in San Francisco. His name was Eric Hoffer, and he's written a lot of great books. And literally, I don't even know if he's formally educated, but he had this quote. He said, "In times of change, the learners will inherit the earth, while the learned will find themselves perfectly equipped for a world which no longer exists."
That's right.
And what you just said is just how are you? The question I want is, how are you? Because you've said this a number of times. How are you able to remain true to yourself, authentic, and genuinely authentic? Because authentic gets thrown around as a buzzword. But how are you able to remain true to yourself, trust your gut, and evolve?
Right. That's where learning comes in. Because I believe when you're educated and you go to school, you don't really learn the material. You learn how to learn. So you become an autodidact, and then you learn by yourself. That's what, every day I wake up and okay, what can I learn today? I have a very big curiosity. Obviously, you have to process it, but where it comes in with meshing with who you are is that certain things you won't be able to do. Because why? Because it'll conflict the message of who you are. If it's going to alter who you are, no. Unless part of your change is willingly to change that aspect and become, something else. But then it's your DNA, who you are. And part of it is to be open to the world. And also, I just love dealing with very, very diverse people. It's so enriching. It's amazing. It is amazing. And I think the learning part of it is that's the key to everything. And the openness of mind.
Oh, my God. I love that. I love that. So as we're reaching the end of our time, a couple more questions. We talked about that 1907 champagne, but what was, and not even champagne, like, if you're not drinking champagne, what are you drinking? Like, what do you like to drink? Like, what's your baller bottle of wine?
Oh, I know. Again, it's not just one.
Yeah.
One of my favorite producers in the universe is Guillaume d'Angerville, Volnay. It's also another thing that's important. Drink what you like.
Yes.
And I like Volnay. Somebody else might like another appellation
like
or another type
Chambertin
of
or
wine.
exactly.
Exactly.
Right.
So I'm a Volnay girl for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that I don't like the others.
Sure.
By far.
Right.
But yes, Claude Duc. Yes. Plus, he's such an amazing person. Always, the human aspect of it. Yeah. That's for sure. In the whites, I really like to be surprised and diversify, go to different regions of the world. I'm very open for that. Whether it's Canary Islands, I love the wines from the islands. It looks like Sicilian wine. I'm taken by Sicilian wine totally. Or even, some other, Loire Valley is an extraordinary region. So extraordinary. So much to learn there. Otherwise, in the non-wine and other champagnes, I have to say, I don't just drink La Caravelle.
Yeah.
I love to drink other champagnes. Love, love, love. There's a club in California called Champagne Camp by Chris Nicola and Garth Hodgson, who used to be with Krug. Okay. And they select a monthly pick of 3 different champagnes. Some of them haven't been imported in the U.S. yet. So you discover things that are incredible. And then in the non-wine drinks, I have 2 cocktails. My go-to cocktails are Margarita with Casadragones, preferably, and Negroni. Those are my 2.
Negroni is a big one in the wine world for some reason. A lot of people who like Negronis. I call them BWG-onies. And lastly, I want to ask you this: what are you most excited about moving forward?
About the world reopening and people being healthier, and that ugliness behind us. On a personal note, I lost my sister to COVID in Lebanon early December, so that was a big shock. So that's going toward positive and healthy. That's the big one. I want to mention real quickly that we didn't talk about the rosé. I forgot to mention the rosé real quick.
Yes, please.
Because why? I ran out of it. So that's,
I remember.
That's why I didn't bring.
Right. No,
I didn't bring it. Next week it'll be replenished. Okay. But our rosé is a blended rosé, same base blend as a Cuvée Nina, and they blend in some still Pinot Noir.
Oh, I have to try that rosé when you get it.
I promise you, when the ship is unloaded, you'll get that.
Very cool.
For sure. Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh. Rita, thank you so much for coming on. You are like beautiful soul.
Ditto.
Yeah. Just generous. I see why you have been successful. You would be successful in anything, but in hospitality, you really have to be giving and generous and love people.
You do.
It doesn't work unless you love people.
Absolutely.
I love that line. I mean, that's in Victoria's book. The guy said, you have to love your customers. You have to love people to be in this business,
Exactly.
Well, I love it. I have a new friend. I love making new friends.
Same here. I love it. Thank you so much. I loved your question. Very insightful and very, humanist also.
Thank you.
I really love that.
Thank you
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Why don't you tell people where they can find you and how they can be a part of what you're doing?
So I can be found on our website, lacaravelle.com. Very simple. You have all the information, including how to reach out to me, or social media. At Instagram at Rita Jammet and at La Caravelle Champagne, as well as at La Caravelle Leasetrack. So there we go.
Well, everybody, this was a lovely, lovely afternoon of day drinking champagne with the lovely inside and out Rita Jammet. My peoples, until the next time, cheers to the Mavericks, the philosophers, the deep thinkers, and all you wine drinkers. It's MJ, and we're out. Peace.